Onigashima. I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Anthony, and today we got chapter 1141, Older Women.
Very interesting title, considering I feel like the chapter didn't really talk about it that much. There was like a one-liner about it,
It was like a
but
joke
for some
almost.
reason,
Yeah.
like, they just threw it in as the title.
Yeah,
I don't know if that'll come back into play later, but whatever.
Yeah,
Oda does his thing.
He lost his creativity there a little bit, but nah,
Yeah.
he did. Nah, dude, we gotta trust. Maybe it's a big plot point, but
Maybe.
into
But
the chapter.
the biggest thing about this chapter, literally and figuratively, is the ending, and I think that's where I want to start today.
Yeah.
We finally got Loki released here, and holy crap, does he look awesome standing up like that? The aura coming off of him is crazy.
Dawn. Yes, no, he stood up, and there's kind of a lot to gather from like the end of it here. I wanted to really quick just rattle off kind of a power scaling thing, because like I think this is the moment where we're gonna see Loki like do something now. Like the next chapter, I'm expecting a lot of hype for, right? Like the monster trio's here, Loki's up, something's gonna happen, and there's all these giant pirates around too, so it's like there's things to suppress him. But one thing right off the bat that I kind of want to talk about is like the Sea Stone. I know this is like, I don't know how many people are talking about this, but he wasn't able to break out for the longest time because of like the Sea Stone, right? Because like suppressing his abilities, making him weaker, whatever. That's how Sea Stone works. We know that there are characters, including Luffy, who can break off Sea Stone cuffs. So clearly Loki, unless these are some supercharged Sea Stone cuffs, has to be not proficient enough in like Rio or whatever to break out of this by himself, right?
And I think that could be one thing about it, but also with how hyped up he's been, I gotta think he is like, his hockey is pretty strong and he can possibly do that. I feel like it's more of the amount of chains that were used. We do know even when Luffy did use those, like the Rio to break it, those were weakened states of Sea Stone cuffs. They said that in Wano also, so that could be a part of it. So I don't want to completely write that off yet, but it would be an interesting possibility.
I just think it's like a scaling thing, right? It's because like I think right now, in my opinion, obviously we haven't seen Loki do anything yet, but I think Luffy's stronger than Loki. I think if they 1v1, Luffy would come out on top. But it's going to be interesting because they're really playing Loki to be like, big here. Another interesting thing about this, so he has one Sea Stone cuff now, right? And so like, I don't know if he's going to be semi-suppressed or if he's going to be able to break through like that one. I feel like he is, right? He's just going to like break it because it's just one now.
Well, I have two theories about what could potentially happen here. Because while we could see him kind of go on a rampage and beat everyone around him, I also have a feeling that this is more of a ruse, and he's getting up, he's smiling, he's gonna put on a show, and right when shit's gonna hit the fan, he's gonna collapse because of all the damage he took from the God's Knights.
Yeah, that could be true.
So I think either that's gonna happen, or when he does go on a rampage, maybe he does like knock out everybody around him, but I feel like these injuries still have to come back to him in one way. Maybe he makes it to the village, and then Usopp knocks him out, and he gets like this, like, because he's supposed to be known as a liar and he does things to like build up his own lore with the giants. So what if like he accidentally, like not accidentally, but like he shoots something and it's just like the final nail in the coffin to knock out Loki, even though he's weakened from fighting like Sanji, Zoro, Luffy, and these giants here, plus the God's Knights damage.
Yeah, I kind of really agree with that. I think the way that it probably plays out is that we get some kind of showing from Loki, so that we're like, whoa, in this injured state, look how like crazy he's going. But in reality, he's like in escape mode, and he comes up with some sort of lie or whatever, like, oh, I'm all good, whatever. But they still don't want him to get away. He might have the transformative abilities that we're all thinking, shape-shifting he might have. He might be totally different. It might not be that at all. But he could like get away and like escape and then eventually bump into Usopp. Yeah, and then they have a relationship together, because clearly like there's parallels between him and Usopp here with the liar stuff. So I feel like, and Usopp is also like one of the characters that they haven't set up, like one of the only Straw Hats that they don't really have like a character arc for him yet, even though he's supposedly going to be the biggest part of this arc, right? So it'd be nice if Loki and him kind of like meet up right after this interaction. I think that would be cool.
And they kind of brought it up in this chapter too. Like Usopp kind of got highlighted in this chapter, seeming to be more brave than he normally is. And they brought up, it's like, oh, of course he's acting like this. It was his dream after all to come to Elbaf. So assuming this was his dream and he's now a brave warrior of the sea, I don't know for sure about that yet, but he needs something else to drive him also.
For sure.
And what if this like interaction or this relationship with like Loki is what's going to be like his next step?
Yeah, I think it'll also be interesting to see how like the rest of the Straw Hats see Usopp and like what his dreams are, because if they think like his dream is just like this, and maybe they all already see him as like a brave warrior of the sea because he's been here like in one way or another. Obviously they don't actually think he's brave, like Luffy is very literal, and I think he's gonna be like, oh yeah, Usopp, yeah, you're a coward, but like, you're still like Nakama and like you're fighting and da-da-da, and like I trust you to fight this and that, whatever. But yeah, I think the whole Usopp character arc is gonna start getting into motion soon. Another thing I kind of wanted to bring up about like his stance here, he grabs his hammer,
sword.
Right? Well, is it a sword?
I thought it was. Oh, it might be a hammer. I know it's supposed to be a reference to like Thor's hammer Mjolnir. It's Ragnir. It's like Ragnarok plus Mjolnir in one. I don't think you can see a good picture of it here. It could be either the bottom of a sword or into a hammer, but either way, what I'm most curious about that is there's two things also with that. Did he get chained up with this weapon? In which case, why? Like, he
might have been like near it. I think one theory that I have is that in like the lore of Thor, right? If this is like Thor's hammer, maybe only certain people can pick it up, those who are like powerful enough or whatever.
That was my second thing I was gonna say. So I agree.
Yeah. They like maybe they couldn't move it, and they were like, all right, we'll chain you up right here. Or maybe that's where he got defeated. You know what I mean? And they just straight up like chained him right there.
And they couldn't move him because he was so large. Oh fuck, just chain him up as much as we can.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of how he's so large, I mean, they say like Zoro says like, oh my god, like he's the size of Oars, like he's like way bigger than a normal giant.
And to put that in perspective for some of you people, Oars is 3 times the size of Harudin, which is the normal size of a giant.
Yeah.
And Harudin is like 50 times like Luffy's size.
Yeah.
So Loki is like 150 times the size of Luffy, even though it doesn't even necessarily look like it in this chapter because of just the space Oda has to draw with. This dude is gigantic.
Massive,
like, holy crap.
Like this, he has to show us like what giants are really about. We've been getting all this hype of giants being this and that, and Loki's definitely, I mean, clearly he's the one that the God's Knights are after, like power wise, right? They're like, hey, you, we get it, like the rest of these giants, like whatever, but you, like you got the blood, like you got the sauce. So
yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see where that goes.
Really quick, just another size comparison here that I thought was really funny is when Harudin and the rest of them are falling out of the sky in that boat, just the size Luffy turns himself into with the Gum Gum balloon to stop them. Because like, think he stops the entire ship, which we said is 50 times, like the pirates on it are 50 times their size, which means the ship has to be even bigger.
Right.
And he turns into a balloon that cushions the entire fall and kind of like engulfs the entire thing.
Pretty instantly, too.
The size Luffy can grow to, like we saw with Gear 5, but he did this in base just now, and that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that is. I didn't even really like think of it like that, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty huge, and he did it like really instantly too. Like Luffy'd be casually doing these. I don't know if it's an emperor level feat, but it's like it's pretty big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we didn't really see him doing stuff like this before. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously Gum Gum Balloon we saw, but not to this scale.
Yeah. Going back a little in the chapter, I mean, we covered a lot of Loki, but we gotta rewind a little to when he was still chained up. We got a lot of cool Zoro Luffy interactions, which I thought is an interesting dynamic that's developing, where they're a little more
kind of button heads a little bit.
Button heads.
This reminds me a lot of like Whiskey Peak interactions.
Yeah.
Where Luffy was being too trusting of these people. Zoro was like, don't trust them. And then he starts fighting them. And then Luffy kind of turns on Zoro here again. Feels like the same thing where Zoro is rightfully being a little bit distrusting. But maybe this is like the same scenario, but Oda turns it on its head now, where Zoro's distrusting, but now Luffy's actually right, and Loki is the one that's not so bad after all.
Yeah.
But again, could just be my headcanon from the other
chapters.
I mean,
Luffy's pretty like his judgment's usually pretty good with these sorts of things in general. He kind of knows when people are like good and bad, and it usually plays out to be true. I think it's interesting, the Whiskey Peak comparison, because I throughout the fandom, so many people have said like, oh my god, this is so out of character for them to be like fighting like this, like the whole Luffy versus Zoro thing. And maybe this was a toned down version of that, because they weren't like, I'm gonna fight you, I'm gonna kill you to each other. But you know, it goes to show that Oda does want to write that into these characters. There are two conquerors that are butting heads on the same crew, like they're fighting each other. Yeah. They're both kings.
And this is also like the dynamics we saw with the Roger crew, right? Where Roger and Rayleigh and Gabon would all butt heads and they would scream at Roger too. Like, I think people are trying to overblow this into something it's not. Like, I've heard people say Zoro's not trusting of Luffy, he's not really on his side anymore, like fuck Zoro. And I'm like, I think you're reading into this too much. I think it's just Zoro trying to, like, he's told Luffy before too in Punk Hazard, like, Luffy, we're in the new world now, we gotta be safe, we gotta make smarter decisions, we gotta think about things. We saw it even like recently where it's like, Luffy, you're an emperor now, think about what you're doing. Like,
I would say he definitely has become like a little harsher this arc. Like, the first thing he said at the beginning of this arc, as they're like getting off of Egghead, was about like Vegapunk being like, why do you care about that guy dying or not, you know? And people were like, whoa, Zoro. And he has been like a little bit more and more like this in the new world. But again,
he said it kind of in this chapter with the animals, right? It's like, meat is meat, just eat it.
Yeah,
Luffy's like, bro, I'm not gonna eat my friend.
Yeah.
Cough, cough, when he tried to eat Chopper multiple times. Guess Chopper's not his friend.
Damn.
That's the conclusion I'm drawing.
No, dude. Oda is just being a goof, bro, with that gag.
No, clearly, it's just a joke.
But yeah, I just like the main Straw Hats like getting character building here, because like I think that this whole Zoro being harsh thing it's not like just a gag. It's been persisting for like a couple chapters, and throughout the new world, like you said. Like, I think it's part of his character, and like we're clearly noticing it more now because he's being like a little more harsh, and they're like really pointing it out. But it might lead into whatever Zoro's next kind of level up will be, because, you know, we know his end goal like is he has to get strong enough to defeat Mihawk essentially. And so I don't know if Zoro's just going through that kind of like hardening.
I mean,
in his
maybe
head,
that's why he also wants to help free Loki. It's to like test his strength also. Like, this whole time it feels like he's kind of been looking for a fight between everybody. He was quick to want to fight Road, and then that got stopped. He was pretty quick to step in to fight Gabon, and then that stopped immediately. He kicked this dude in the face and then let him free also. Like, I feel like Zoro's itching for a fight to test how strong he really is.
True that. And what better way than Sanji being here to try to one-up him the whole time, probably, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Sanji shows up Zoro in this. Maybe Zoro tries something, can't do it, and then Sanji comes in with like an invisible kick and knocks out Loki, and it pisses off Zoro.
Could be.
Doubt it, but we'll see.
The rest of this chapter, you know, is like pretty standard, just like world building and like pushing the plot forward. You know, like we see that whole interaction with Gerd and everything, and the rest of the giant pirates and Nami coming back, and we talked about Usopp. The one thing I did want to talk about before we like hop off is like the little Frankie interaction that we got with him, you know, kind of touring around the Atom Tree. This is something that's like super headcanon-y, but some people are saying that it's like foreshadowing for this. But,
well, that's what I thought immediately when I saw it. When I saw it, I was like, why would Oda even write something like this into the story if not to bring it up later, right? Like, it just seems kind of like weird lore to throw in. I feel like by the end of it, Elbaf, maybe all of it, or at least part of it, is going to be on fire. Probably, if I had to guess, the entire Walrus School and the giant library is going to go up in flames, with the Celestial Dragons, or I guess the Gods Knights, trying to basically destroy the knowledge of the giants and destroy any like history of the past. Yeah. So that's my prediction, but this definitely feels like foreshadowing to me.
Hear me out. It said fire and lightning. You know, one character that people were expecting on Elbaf? I don't know about expecting, but hoping. NL, dude. NL.
I don't know about expecting either, and hoping I think is also even a stretch.
But what if NL is?
I will say,
super duper subtle foreshadowing for NL.
We did see the Arc Maxim in that giant mural also. So I don't know. Maybe.
They're kind of flying
I
around.
think
They're
that's a
like
big
Sky
stretch, but you
Islands.
never know.
It's like little tiny hints, you know. Maybe we get a no. Who knows, bro?
I think I knows.
Oh,
I
yeah?
knows the answer is no.
Nah, bro. It's gonna be like how people wanted Dragon in the last arc.
Oh, Dragon's not coming ever.
Nah, he's not coming, but Enel might come.
No.
Shiki's the other one, right? That people are like, oh my god, or Big Mom.
Yeah. Well, I'd expect Big Mom more in this arc with the Giants rather than NL, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
You guys can all call me wrong and a liar if it does happen. I'm okay taking that out.
Yeah, well, I guess, we'll get more insight because there's some good news.
Oh, say it.
No break next week.
Hell yeah. Woo! Oh, another 3 chapters in a row. We're living good right now.
We're living good. We're going to see Loki do his thing, and we're going to see NL next chapter, trust.
Okay. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell me how many times we're going to see NL next chapter in the comments.
Peace, y'all.
Peace.